So anytime you're submitting code in the class, anytime you go into code in Gradescope, you need to follow a specific procedure. So example, here's a clock problem. Doesn't matter what the language is, doesn't matter what the code is, this process is the same, but this is an example. So I click on this and I can drag and drop my code inside of here. Almost every single one of the exercises, you're just simply taking a single code file. In this case, I have a Java file, I'm gonna drop it here. It could be a Python file, it could be a C file, it could be an R file, it could be a MATLAB file, it doesn't matter. Um, the code. I don't need everything. I only need the things you change. Everything else is already loaded onto Gradescope. But there's a catch. So if I upload this and this alone, it's going to fail. And I'm going to show you the failure so you see it. But every single time you submit code, you have to have a cover sheet. So anytime you submit, it's going to go off. The autograder is going to run. You need to wait for the autograder to finish. Because in this case, you can see it failed. No cover sheet. And so you see the cover sheet failed, no file ending in XLSX. It has to have a spreadsheet from Excel. It can't be the number spreadsheet. It can't be a Google sheet. It's got to be a Excel spreadsheet because that's what my code uses and reads from that. If you don't have Excel locally, the school has Excel online and you can edit the thing online and submit it that way. But it needs to be this Excel file. All right, so how do I do that? Well, I can just simply resubmit it. Again, unlimited resubmissions, keep working on it until it's right. So I come in and I can set up my cover sheet here. So let me go back to my downloads and I have a cover sheet. And then I have my code and I put them both out there. And I say upload. Now, this cover sheet that I'm submitting is actually going to fail as well because it's not actually filled out. It's an empty cover sheet. And I'll show you what the cover sheet looks like. So I actually created my own copy of it, new cover sheet, but it's all this information that's coming in here. So it's pretty simple information, but it needs to be updated every single time you submit something. Not every single change to it, but every exercise individually. So some of the exercises has 5 or 6 different options. Each time you finish one problem with tests on it, once the tests are there, put a cover sheet on it, submit it right away. The cover sheet is a little bit of some reflection. We'll talk about that in a second, but it's not that bad. And again, it just gets done right away. So my name, my ID, and how much time did I spend on this? This is in increments of 15 minutes. So you don't have to do it per minute. If you did spend 15 minutes on it, it's 0.25. If you spent 45 minutes on it, 0.75. An hour is 1. So then what's the date of the submission? Now, this is important. It has to be updated the day you did it. If I say this is 1/1, well, it has to be set for today. All right. I can say it's 5/5. That's in the future from today when I'm recording this. Nope, it has to be that. Today is 3/28, and it'll accept it. It'll accept 3/29 as well. So if you're working late at night, it's about to be midnight. You can do the next day. It's not the end of the world. All right, and then I have to pick a confidence level. So am I sure my assignment is working, or am I sure it's broken, or somewhere in between? I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's broken. It might be correct. This is important because if you say you're 100% sure it's correct and there's errors, then I'm going to assume that you made a mistake in submitting it, and I'm not going to spend a bunch of time looking over it. I just send a note like, hey, these things are broken, and let you go through and fix it because I'm assuming you know what's going on. Because most of these things you can test locally or you get feedback instantly. All right, so let me just real quick. This is done. Now notice I have a cover sheet and thus it ran my tests. They're all failing because I haven't actually done the code for that yet. But it shows me all the details of the cover sheet because it was filled in. I guess I forgot to save the empty cover sheet. But let me show you something here. Let me save this again. And so when it's all filled out, it works correctly. Let me do it here with the partially saved cover sheet. So time and cover sheet, and upload this in the meantime to show you some of these failures that come up. One of the ones that I wanted to show you was this collaborators. You absolutely have to fill in this. If you worked with nobody, you can say NA, or you can say none, or I did this myself, you can say collaborators, me, myself, and I, whatever you want to, but it has to be filled out. If you worked with other people, well, I talked to my dad and my pod and the professor. Yeah, you don't need to know me. That's fine. You can put me inside of there, but I want to know who you worked with because if your code ends up being similar to somebody else's in class or similar to something online, I want to know where it came from. I mean, I'm probably not going to see your dad's code, but if your mom or your dad wrote something that's on GitHub, well, that would explain part of it. And you might put here, I looked at uh, this site, http:// blah, 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 whatever that is. Again, I want to know what resources you had. Attribution is really important. If you got help, let me know where that help came from. So that way, if for some reason something is suspicious, it's not that you were trying to cheat. It's at worst case scenario, you just didn't understand what it meant to collaborate. You didn't understand what it meant to work with others. And so if there's no attribution, if you say you did it by yourself, no resources, and it turns out to be very similar to somebody else, that's where academic honesty concerns comes up. So make sure you're filling that one out. The next bit, so what challenges did you face? Again, this has to be 25 characters, but if there's no challenges, just find a way to say that in 25 characters. But this is a place for you to tell a story. Like, hey, when I was working on this assignment, I didn't understand the algorithm, and the test case was funny, and I thought it was a big problem. But then when I did some debugging, I saw this, and wow, it made a bunch more sense. Did you discover any revelations or new concepts? Oh yeah, I suddenly discovered that that's not the way if statements work, and they work a different way, and now I know that. And is there anything you need to practice further deliberately? Meaning, you solved one problem. If I put another one in front of you of the same nature, would you solve it again? Could you solve it again? So, what other problems might you practice, or what things might you do on your own, or what other ways can you go and set this into your head? Maybe you're going to do the whole thing over again. Delete it all, start over, and code the whole thing over again. But what do you need to do to really make sure you remember this stuff going forward? And then the most important thing, if it's not working, is what feedback do you want? Don't just say, tell me if my code's better. Don't just say, tell me if it's efficient. That's not helpful. If you have concerns, let me know what those concerns are. Everybody could always say, how could I do it better? That's just generic. And you're not really going to go look at every single one of them like that. So again, just simply saying, I'm sure my code's not good, tell me how to do it better, it doesn't actually mean it's not good. It might be fine. So if you're saying like, hey, I had problems in this specific part, I feel like I hacked it around, isn't okay if I hacked it around, that's perfectly reasonable. Not every bit of code you write in your career needs to be perfectly efficient. That is a myth. That is a waste of time, actually. Sometimes just getting a task done and done appropriately is better than optimizing the task and spending 5 times as much on it because somebody is paying for your time. If not you, somebody is. So let me come back here real quick. We saw the cover sheet work in full, but if there's a problem, it's going to say test failed. And then it's going to say, hey, by the way, these are the things you need to go off and fix. And in the current version, and this is an older version right here, in the current version, it's actually going to demand that you go through and it will not grade it. You will not get anything results here if the cover sheet's broken. So you need to make sure if you see these errors, you fix it. And whatever it says, challenges must be 25 characters. Revelation should be more than 25 characters. Practice should be 25 characters. It's going to demand that the time is numeric. It's going to demand that you put collaborators in there. Whatever it asks for, fix it and resubmit it. Once you do that, you'll get your feedback for that. For the most part, you can come up with a template. The name, your ID. So what you're going to change each time is everything below here. So you need to go revisit it. You can't use the same text time after time. If you want to do well in interviews, if you want to do well and be a better learner, you need to practice writing, and practice telling stories about what you do. And this is a great way for you to reflect and prepare not only for the interviews in this class, but once you start doing internships or real job interview someday, these reflections, these stories will come in really, really handy. So use this on any time you're submitting code and refer to this if you need to remind yourself how to fix stuff.